Good morning, Boo. It's 8 a.m. Boo slept on the bed all night. This morning he jumped in the cat tower in my room, and the door was closed, so he had peaceful sleep. He didn't worry about any other cats. It was stress-free. Right, Boo?
This is a video about how to make black cats more visible in your videos or even in your photos. One of the problems that those of us who film black cats have is that they often appear really dark in the video footage or in the photographs. And that is because of the color of their fur. The very dark fur just automatically absorbs light. There's not a whole lot of reflection going on, so they can appear darker on film than they are in actual life. And I just wanted to share what I do to help make them more visible in the videos that I post or in the photos that I post. And right now I'm working in Final Cut Pro. Other programs will be similar to this. If I'm editing photos in Photoshop, I'm using very similar tools. And if you are using iMovie or Premiere, again, it will be very similar tools in those programs. I can't speak for how exactly to do it, but if you just look for tools that are similar to what I am showing you, you should be able to do it also. This section is a preview of the video that I am working on, and then down here we have the timeline. So here's the video, and what I've done is I've created several freeze frames so we can then compare the changes that we're making to the footage. So this is the first freeze frame, and this is going to just stay like this so we can compare to this one. This is the second freeze frame right now, and this is the one we are going to work on to make Boo more visible in this video. So the first thing I want to do is open up the color board, and this is the color board. It's already open. Here's where you can adjust the colors. Here's where you can adjust the saturation, and here's where you can adjust the exposure. And this is what we want to do. We want to adjust the exposure. The shortcut for this on a Mac is Command 6, and that'll open up the color board. So if we go here, and then we hit Command 6, it opens up the color board. So that's the shortcut. And what we are going to do is we are going to adjust the exposure. So the first thing I normally do is I go here. This is the global exposure setting, so this will adjust all the exposure. This is the shadows, this is the midtones, and this is the highlights. So we're going to take the global exposure, and we are just going to drag it up a little bit. Do you see how it's making Boo lighter? Like if I drag it way up here, you'll see how it makes everything way lighter. So if we bring it back to where it was, that's the original. We're just going to drag it up a little bit because we don't want to lose the blacks. We want to make sure this is still black. We want to make sure the shadows are black or as close to black as we can keep them without washing everything out. It's going to vary based on video clip how well this works. It works better in some clips than others, and sometimes you do have to lose the intensity of the blacks a little bit to make a black cat more visible, but it never has to be too drastic. So this is what it looks like by boosting just the global exposure, but he's still a bit dark. So what I then do is I go over to the midtones, and I take these midtones and I bring the midtones up a little bit also. Again, you don't want to bring them up too much because it washes everything out. And if we go back to default setting, and then we just bring it up a little bit, notice that it brings out the shine in his fur. So this is the clip with the changes that we made. And this is what it looked like before we made those changes. So there's definitely a difference in how much of his fur that you can see. Here it's very dark. It's almost like one big black mass. And then here you could actually see more of his individual strands of fur. So that is the way I do it. And again, how much I change the global exposure or the mid-tone exposure will vary based on clips. And it will also vary based on the camera that I use. So what I have done and what I can do in Final Cut Pro is I can set up presets. So here are all of the video effects. There's a lot of different effects you can put on video in Final Cut, and then they break it down into categories. And what you can do is you can create your own category. So I've created a category called Ferals. So if I'm working on a LuckyFerals video, I usually go to this category, and I have two different exposures set. I have a 620 exposure, which is for the Canon 620 camera, and then this Boudet exposure, and this Boudet exposure is for the G7X camera. And the majority of the times when I'm using those cameras, all I need to do is use one of these exposures, and it will save me from having to go through these manual steps of adjusting the exposure manually. So here's the original clip. This is what it looked like after we adjusted it manually. So here we are on the third freeze frame, and if we then go over to the presets, and if I hover over a preset, we can see what that preset is going to do before applying it. So we could see right away that that is going to help make Boo more visible. And then if we go to this second preset, this Boudet exposure, we can see that it's going to lighten it up even more. I think that one might make it too light. So let's go with this 620, and all I need to do is drag this onto the clip, and it made the changes. And if I want to, I can then go up here and tweak the global exposure just a little bit. So it actually saves time because once you start working and you get yourself in a workflow, it's much easier just to go over here and drag it on and then adjust than starting from scratch. So let's take a look. So here's the original footage. It was very dark. Could hardly see Boo. This is how we fixed it manually. He's much more visible. And this is what it looks like using the preset with just a little adjustment to the preset. So the presets definitely help save time because you could see that the preset is practically exactly what we did manually and visually. So that is how I help to make Boo more visible in these videos. So here is the rest of that clip. So what I can then do, if I know I like the exposure that I put on this clip, I can then copy that and paste that onto the rest of the clip. So what I then do is I hit Command C, which is the shortcut for copying. I go over to the new clip and I hit Shift Command V, and that brings up this paste attributes menu, and it's basically telling me it's going to paste on the new color board settings, and I hit paste, and there we go. The rest of the video now has the same exposure as the freeze frame that we did. And that is also a really big time saver when it comes to editing Boudet videos. And as we scroll through this clip, we can see that Boo is much more visible than he would have been. So let's do this. Right where we are right now, I just split this footage into two separate sections. Here's the section with the adjusted exposure, and then here's the section that we're going to change back to the original exposure. And to do that, I just have to hit this back arrow, and that brings it right down to the original exposure. And you see up here, it's gotten really dark. So that's what it would have looked like originally, and that's what it looks like after it was exposed. Before the exposure, after the exposure. So what I've done here is I've taken this clip and I've duplicated it. So on the bottom we have the clip with the original exposure. The exposure is flat. And on the top we have the clip with the adjusted exposure. And what I've done is I've trimmed this. So you see the top clip here on the top half, and you see the bottom clip here on the bottom half, and you can see the different exposures. And if we play this, we can see the difference in Boo's fur. On the bottom half, notice it's almost a solid black, and on the top half you can definitely see the light reflecting on it, and you could see much more detail in his fur. Again, look at this clip. The bottom half is practically solid black. The top half you could see detail. So that is how I edit these videos to make Boo more visible. I hope this information was useful for you. Again, this works also in Photoshop if you're editing photos, and it would also work in iMovie and Adobe Premiere if you're using those programs. I know Adobe Premiere has exposure settings, and I'm pretty sure iMovie does, but I'm not 100% sure. But I would think that they would. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. If you're working with black cats, you can make them a lot more visible in your editing and your post-production. Obviously, you can also adjust the exposure in your camera, but those of us who film cats know we don't always have the time to stop and adjust exposure in the camera because we're just hitting record really fast because we don't want to miss anything. And also they move around so much that it's also difficult to be constantly making those adjustments in the camera. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up, and thank you for subscribing to this channel. Have a great day.
Good morning, Boo. It's 8 a.m. Boo slept on the bed all night. This morning he jumped in the cat tower in my room, and the door was closed, so he had peaceful sleep. He didn't worry about any other cats. It was stress-free. Right, Boo?
Thank you for watching this LuckyFerals video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you'd like me to post more videos, and please make sure to check out these other videos that were selected especially for you.